just want to introduce, and I really don't have to introduce him, everybody knows, but I just want to say how important he is in my life. I had the opportunity to meet Senator some years back. Actually, when I was working for CWA down in Newark, he had a title company right next door. And at that point in time, we were battling Christy Whitman because she was privatizing DMV. And DMV is a division where women and minorities were working in this department but at that time they were making about $35,000 to $40,000 a year with benefits. And she fired them on Friday, and she rehired them back on Monday, making $23,000 a year with no benefits or anything of that nature, because she privatized it out and gave it to her political friends, and they ran amok over it. And there were some Democrats and what I call Republicrats, Democrats who think they're Republicans, that were basically had their hand in the cookie jar because they was going to get a cut of the money from the privatization. And this senator stood up and said, no, that it is wrong. He stood in picket lines. When we closed the DMV on Phelan Heights and Avenue in a walkout, he was there. Can you do me a favor? And he was there with that. I also want to say this. The senator is a man's man. And I've seen him hold up budgets. Governor McGreevey wanted to cut a budget, and everybody was ready to go home, and he said, we are not signing this budget, and I'm not going to sign off on this budget until you put money in the EOF. You put money into the city of Newark in my district. And people used to have to carry beds into the State House, because we used to have to sleep there until the budget was signed. And people need to know what that really means. This man has held up the state budget until the people in this district, the 28th Legislative District, people in Newark, people in Irvington, got what they need. The students. People need to know how important EOF is to our students. People that look like us in this room. At the end of the day, in some instances, this is the only way that folks and kids that look like us are able to afford to go to college. Because of this man, every year, including this year, if he doesn't stand up for it, we have Democrats that will sit down, lay down, and sell our kids out just in order to make a buck for themselves or take care of their political friends. But this man every year holds it up.
While you're speaking, let's talk about when he took Wayne and them down to the state and made sure that they got the money for the projects that they needed in Irvington.
Exactly. So,
holding up the budget.
We can sit here and talk hours and hours about what this man has done for the community. They've kicked him off the line 3 times. He is one of only 4 people in the state of New Jersey that has beat the Democratic machine off the line. And, yeah. Also, I want to say this. The last time that they took him off the line, see, they knew better this last time. But the time before when they kicked him off the line, and they redistrict his area. People need to understand what that means. They wanted to take this man out so bad, they gerrymandered the whole district and put Glen Ridge in the district and put a couple other areas in the district, Bloomfield, Belleville, Nutley. And they said, we got him this time. And he sat down and we said, well, how are we going to figure this thing out? But because of the work that he did many years ago, the people in Belleville, the people in Bloomfield said, you haven't represented us before, but we got your back. And when we beat them off the line again, if you remember, there's this picture that he actually has it in his office, but the Star Ledger had this picture of now U.S. Senator Booker with a bullseye on his nose and an arrow, and said rights to him, right? At that time, there was a political assassination against our black elected officials. He was the only man standing.
Who was the one that ran against him, that they used to go against him?
Well, he was the combination of people. I'll just leave it at that. Blah Beasley. But anyway, at the end of the day, without any further ado, I would like to bring up my friend, my confidant, and the person that I respect the most in politics, Senator Ronald.
All right. take a few moments to put things in perspective, particularly since I like to see people stay until the person who took time out of his busy schedule to fly here, we shall at least be here, if we can, to receive him. Lionel is family. Rufus is family. Rufus didn't start with me in 1982 when I became the councilman in the city of Newark for 16 years. When I did my master's program, I found Rufus at a place called Vindicate Society. And that's where I snatched him out and we developed a relationship. Lionel and I go back, and he says when he was working for CWA, but to be quite frank, I think it was a little earlier because I used to walk in, I wasn't sure who he worked for because he had this little computer and he was putting stuff in, and a young looking guy, and I'm thinking to myself, well, who's this guy? But he was actually being analytical and doing voters type of things back then. I think for the NAACP or somebody, because we continue to be disenfranchised. Mayor Smith and Andre McElroy and others, we go back when, before they were even elected into office. And they've always basically been there for me. There were times we had some differences. And the differences wasn't because of their leadership in the township. The difference is because, as Andre said, and as Milcher said, yes, I drank the Kool-Aid real quick because I thought it would make a difference. There were blinders. But I've never been blind, primarily because I'm older than all of them. And I know the history of Irvington when I grew up and used to go to Olympic Park, which they talked about on 101.5. People were reminiscing, and they forgot what was in Irvington or Union, and then someone came and said Irvington. And so I remember these cities in Essex County, the urban cities, when the Jews lived there for a lot of money, but you never knew there was wealthy black folk, Latinos. We've always been a diverse community. But I also remember the good times. But I remember when the bad times set in, primarily because throughout this country, black folk, civil rights were being violated. And so as a result of that, we had these disturbances that went across the country. Newark was one of the first. With the disturbances, people thought someone was killed when in fact they weren't. But we're in the same era right now where the rubber band is stretching, where poor people are getting poor, the wealthy is getting wealthy, and the middle class that's still in our communities and elsewhere can't afford to take care of the wealthy, making them wealthier, and deal with the poor too. We lost our industry here that was in the East Ward and all over Irvington, as well as in the city of Newark, where we could walk down the street and you didn't have to fill out an application on a computer. You could walk and ask for a job, and there was a good chance you may get one regardless of what you look like or what your skill set is. And so we're trying to put those things back.